Good evening, everybody. Barry Rudolph, as I said, CalFire and Tuolumne County Fire Department. I want to talk about three things tonight with you. Our staffing plans and what's going on to give you an update of where we're at. I want to talk about the conditions that are out there that we all face. And I want to leave it with what you can do individually here, because I think there's something here for you that you should be aware of, that you can do as we approach this fourth year of a drought, and we all know what that's probably going to mean. Let's start out with the staffing and what CalFire has been responding to in terms of reacting to the drought. This is the first time I started in 1980 as a firefighter here, and so this is my 36th season of doing this type of work. This is the first time that I've ever seen where we staffed fire engines all winter long in this unit, in this area, in fact, up and down the state. We staffed 3 engines all winter long, and all winter long, those engines were busy chasing wildfires in between the rainstorms that happened. It was kind of unprecedented. We're about 4 to 6 weeks ahead of what we normally would start to staff when we would start to bring on our seasonal firefighters, get our equipment ready, and start preparing for the summertime. And we will be ahead of that goal. We're right in the middle of it right now. By Monday, we will have 15 of our 21 engines online, and by the next following week, we will have our air base personnel trained up and ready to get that operation going out at Columbia. The helicopter today is actually staffed with the fire crew, which is probably a good month ahead of what we would normally see. So that gives you an indication of how we are ramping up and reacting to that. On May 18th, the current plan is to have all of the aircraft on and available at Columbia. And this is a full month ahead of the normal schedule. The normal opening date for that base is about mid-June. So you can see, get an idea of where we're headed with getting everything ready to go. Conditions. I didn't bring a slideshow, but I did bring a few audio-visual aids here that I thought I would share with you. Actually, I cut these last week because I was getting ready to do a presentation, and these have been sitting in the back of my truck. So they're really an accelerated view of what's going on actually out there in the in the wildlands, honestly. This is, you're all familiar with manzanita, and you're familiar with probably this bush here, which is what we call chamise, all right? Now, why did I bring these in? Well, because we hear a lot of conversations about how fuel moistures and how those affect fires and whatnot. To give you a 4-hour fire behavior class in about 4 minutes, what you need to know is the key to how intense a wildfire burns, how fast it moves across the landscape, is how wet the fuels are. The wetter the fuels, it's just like having a piece of wet firewood in your fireplace. It won't burn, it doesn't put off much heat. Put a dry piece of firewood in there, burns very fast, burns hot, and it burns fast. Well, it's the same principle out there in the wildlands. These two are what we call a live fuel, and we measure those over the trend of a season, okay? And I'll come back to that in just a second. So it starts out, the trend in the wintertime, it'll be at a level, and then we'll get the spring flush, and when the growth starts to come on, it rises, and then it goes back down, and it starts to bottom out until it hits in the fall, where it hits its low point. That's basically the curve that it goes on. This, on the other hand, is what we call a dead fuel, and this is measured in hours, okay, the reaction to it. So you're going, okay, well, tell me the deal here. It takes about an hour for this to change, from a rainstorm to the sunlight before it to start to react. So it's a very fast thing. Fuels that are about the size of my thumb, they take about a day to react. About the size of my arm, about 4 days. Bigger than that, about 40 days. Okay, so when we had all this recent rain, you would think it had a big impact on the larger fuels. It didn't. It's a temporary situation. For the most part, what we're seeing is just see fires that are on TV right now, and you can see where the brush fields. Have you noticed on the pictures from the helicopters overseeing how everything is totally consumed and everything is burned off? Have you happened to notice that? Watch the news reports, and when you see that, you shouldn't be seeing that right now. okay? So this portends of things to come. We measure this, when we figure this plant, we consider it to be at a critical fuel moisture level when it reaches a figure of 80%. And we measure the water in it and cook the water off, and then we reweigh the cuttings, and that's what gives us our percentage, okay? Remember, 80 for manzanita. This is chamise, 60%, okay? They start to really exhibit extreme fire behavior when those moistures reach that level. That's some numbers. The most recent cuttings, okay, remember we were talking about the bell curve where we go up. So on 3/16 of this year, the chamise, the young growth, which is out on the end of the plant, was measuring about 320%, okay? Versus, keep in mind, that's 60. It started dropping, and on 4/1 it was at 163, and the last cutting that was done and cooked at was at 140, okay? So we're headed for the 60, all right? So it's just a trend. It's showing you how fast that it's coming down. The manzanita, by the same token, on that same date, was at 111, okay? That 4/2, it went to 213. So what was happening was the chamise was actually ahead of the manzanita. It was flowering quicker and it was blooming quicker. So it's ahead of it. The manzanita didn't start to react to the spring flush until the first part of April. It already peaked and it's headed back down at 186, this last measurement. So to give you a comparison from last year, and we all know what last year was around the state. This year, the live fuel moisture, this last reading that was taken, I told you was 140. This time last year, it was 206. The chamise, this year I told you it was 186. Last year it was 240. When we combine the older material that's in there where where the rest of the plant is, the combined fuel moisture this year for the chamise was 106. Okay, this was on April 15th, 106. Remember the critical at 60. The manzanita, the combined between the old and the new growth, measures out at 126. And what was the critical number for that? 80. Okay, as compared to last year, 151 and 137. So we're about 20 to 30 points below, and we're headed that way. What's going to happen to our curve? We're up on top. We're just going to keep going down. What's that mean? It means we're going to be into this faster. Okay, we're ahead of schedule. We have longer exposure. There's less snowpack. You saw the slide. All of those fuels are not snow covered. They've been exposed to sunlight. They're drying faster. More area that's susceptible. To put this together, there's three pieces that firefighters study when we're talking about fire behavior and fires: topography, weather, and the fuels. So to my final point, what can you do? Can you affect the topography? Probably not. Can you affect the weather? Probably not. Can you affect the fuels in your yard? Yes, you can. We call that defensible space. The law requires that you clear 100 feet or to your property line, whichever is closer, of all this type of material and get it away so that when the fires come, there's less intensity and the firefighters actually have a safer place to work. So what I want to leave you with here is that we're approaching the cumulative effect of a fourth year of drought. The water is a key issue. We're water users. There's no doubt. But you can do your part. You can maintain your defensible space and give yourselves that clearance and that protection that you need. And I know that we talk about it a lot, but we can't overemphasize it enough that is something that you can do. And it will make a difference. It will make a difference. Finally, we've curtailed our training and our use of water and really gone out of our way to really curtail those activities. I just heard a presentation about people that don't have water in their wells. Conservation measures. We are aware of that. And so we're curtailing those activities at all costs where we can. Finally, burn permits. Burn permits will be required on May 1st. We'll probably go to restricted hours at that time, which is 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. I would highly encourage you to get everything done that you can as soon as you can, because I would anticipate seeing a ban on all burning, as we've done the last several years, put in place. So I would look to see that happen pretty quick. So for those of you that are in those areas that are tough to get to and you need to get rid of the pine needles and get things burned up, now's the time to get that done. And things are drying out fast. Do it in a safe manner. Always have water in attendance. Sorry, we have to have a little bit of water. A tool and an able-bodied adult in attendance at all times when you're doing the burning. And don't ever leave your fires unattended and leave the scene. And I'll wrap up and save it for questions.
Thank you, Barry. So our last panelist this evening is Gary Stockel, Tuolumne County Farm Advisor, Ag Advisor. And so have your questions ready.
Well, I get to speak before you get any questions. As Sherri said, I'm Gary Stockel. I'm an agricultural commissioner here in Tuolumne County. I wear another hat. I'm also the director of animal control services. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about both of those hats that I wear. You've heard mainly tonight about the impacts of the drought to domestic water supply. So I want to give you a little bit of background about the impacts on agricultural water supply. I'll spend most of my time there, and then I will spend a little bit of time about impacts that we are foreseeing for animal control. Just to give you a statewide overview of agriculture in California, there's approximately 100 million acres of land in California. And 25 million of those acres are farmed or ranched. So 25% of our land mass is used in some farming activity. It may be timber, could be livestock ranching, or it could be irrigated agriculture. Now, statewide, we have about 7.5 million acres of irrigated lands here in California. And not all of that is surface water. It's a combination of surface water and groundwater. And we've heard a little bit tonight about subsidence issues where folks have overdrafted their aquifers, especially in the Central Valley, and you've seen those alluvial soils, they're subsiding because of that overdraft. Well, the irrigated lands, surface water, I want to talk a little bit about that. In the 2014 calendar year, there were 428,000 acres of land that received surface water that was idled, it was fallowed, it was not planted. And so no water was used on that ground at all. In 2015, the estimate is that it's going to be in the area of 620,000 acres of farm ground that's going to be fallowed, will not be planted. To give you an idea of what that looks like, 620,000 acres is almost 1,000 square miles of farm ground. So let's take Highway 5 and take a straight shot down for 100 miles and think of a corridor 10 miles wide. That's the area of ground that's not going to be planted in annual crops in 2015. Over 30% of the irrigated lands, about 2.2 million acres, are going to receive either no water or 80%, less only 20% of what they normally are delivered. That means people are going to be making decisions. That's why they're making decisions to fallow ground or take that water if they are a farmer that's growing both crops that are permanent in nature, trees, fruits and vines, or annual, and they're taking that water that they normally would receive for the annual ground just to keep their permanent crops alive, maybe not even to make a harvestable crop this year. Now, to bring it home to Tuolumne County, our farming is a little bit different than what you see down in the Central Valley. We're a mountain county, and we don't have a lot of irrigated crops here. My office does a crop statistics report on an annual basis that includes livestock production, which is cattle, sheep, hogs, goats, poultry, and our crops, edible plant crops. And here in our county, our gross agricultural production is about $36.3 million. Now, our biggest farming activity involves livestock. That's about $17.4 million of gross receipts. Our second is timber, and that actually has been on the uptick a little bit because of the 2013 rim fire, where there have been some salvaging logging operations going on. It wasn't green trees that were being harvested, but it was those who were affected by the burn. And our number 3 crop is rangeland. That's about worth about $3.7 million. So you can see our livestock, the combination of those animals plus range, is about $20 million. It's about 58% of the production here in the county. Irrigated lands, we only have about 1,400 acres that are irrigated here in the county. And I have to talk about TUD here a little bit. 680 of those acres are irrigated because it's a recycled use of reclaimed water. So it's secondary treated water that's going to irrigate pastures. So and that's 100% of their water. None of it is going back into a stream. 100% of the reclaimed water is being used for a farming activity. So the pasture use, about 1,400 acres. Fruits and vegetables, about 270 acres is irrigated. And that's a mixture of water that's either supplied from surface water, it might be TUD ditch water, or they're on wells like very many of you are here for your own domestic use. Those folks that are on wells are in the same situation that the domestic users are. If those wells are drying, they likely don't have another alternative to go to. Just as with the domestic users, there are programs that are available to deal with farm ground that's agricultural activities that are impacted. And those programs are administered by the United States Department of Agriculture through their Farm Services Agency. There's about 12 different programs available for deal with livestock in one way or another. Some will reimburse water for water hauling if your stock ponds are going dry, or they'll provide you some funding to rebuild a spring or refurbish a spring, maybe deepen a well that's providing water for your livestock. They will provide for funding that will allow you to do supplemental feeding. One of the impacts that we're seeing from the drought is less production from our rangeland. We'll be doing a more comprehensive survey here in a couple of weeks, but at this point it looks like it's only about 30% of normal production for forage on our rangelands, which means that our livestock industry, they're probably doing several things. One is they're reducing the stock that they're running so that they can balance that with what's available. They may be purchasing supplemental feeds so that they can make up the loss. And they may also be running out of water, which could be worsening the situation. They might be looking for an opportunity to get some rangeland in another location where they can move their stock to that is in a better shape. All of those things are difficult to find new ground to supplement feed or have to haul water. Tree and vine crops, as I mentioned, there's not a lot of opportunity to make up lost water, at least in Tuolumne County. With that, that's going to end what I've got to do. Oh, no, I want to talk about animal control. The impacts for our animal control agency is we're expecting that there's going to be an uptick in the number of calls we get to deal with animal welfare. The reason for that being is the same thing that's impacting our livestock producers. Is if you've got some pasture where you've got horses or maybe some farm animals on, you're seeing the same sorts of things. Not enough grazing land for them, possibly not enough water. But what happens is those animals go into distress, and our animal services get those phone calls that we've got some animals that are in a starvation condition or a lack of water. We want you to bring those to our attention, and we will look at each one of those and determine whether there's a way that we can get some assistance for those animals. And in the most egregious instances, we would actually impound them and take them under our care. So with that, my talk is concluding, and I'll turn it back over to Sherri, and we can open up for questions.
Thank you, Gary. So with that, I'll start back here.
Good evening. My name is Marty Knight. My wife and I live in Sierra Village. Tonight we've heard what I think we all appreciate is a serious problem, but I have some specific questions about our pragmatic individual needs. We are on a well. Our well is plagued with a massive amount of iron. Because of that, we have an iron filtration system which ejects about 170 gallons of water a week that is completely wasted. I am highly concerned about this, and we are in the process of attempting to reclaim this water through a storage tank facility and an inline pump. The only thing I can think of to do with this water is to water our garden. My calculations indicate in the best case scenario that would be maybe 60 gallons a week on the outside. That leaves a massive amount of unused water. Again, I feel guilty about this. I feel like I need to do something about this. My first question, and I have several, and I hope that they can all be addressed by all of the experts on the board. The first question is there some other option other than what we're using now so that we can somehow reclaim the filtered water and make that potable? Is that even mechanically an option? I have no idea. The second question is, are there local contractors available who can provide assistance on this? And if so, how would we know to get in touch with them? A related problem that we have in Sierra Village is that our trees are dying, or some of the trees are dying due to the lack of water and then the bark beetle infestation. This has been a huge hardship. I dropped one tree and in the process managed to injure myself. And we now have a couple of other trees, and I wondered if there is any type of assistance on that scale for dealing with that type of drought-related issue. And I think the last question I have is there any way to know if your well is about to run dry? Ideally, it'd be nice to have a little window and a little scale, and you could look at it and you'd know exactly where you stand. I would appreciate some input on that. Thank you very much.
So, Rob?
The well running dry. Essentially, when your well is drilled, and if you come to our office, we have the well driller slot. So, we have Tanko right here. As Tanko drills a well, they're required by state law to categorize that well, and
the various levels of where that, first of all, how deep the well is, and the static level of where that water naturally sits. Now, for those that do not understand what static is, this cup right now, or this bottle, where the water is sitting right now, that is the static level. So when your well was drilled, it had a certain capacity where that water was located, and that's logged. What you could do is get a copy of that well log, and have either a well driller or your pump, one of our pump guys come out and essentially see where that static water level is today and compare it to the original, and then you can see how much has dropped and how in contrast to how deep your well actually is, and see how much room you have left to play with. Now, in regards to your tree question, some of the other panel members might have some other suggestions. We are trying to work with the governor's office, the Office of Planning and Research, trying to encourage a declaration of emergency for the bark beetle, because we are seeing up in the Groveland area a 30% kill. And for those that do not understand the biology of what's going on with the bark beetle, essentially, as you have the hydrostatic pressures coming up from the ground, from the roots, the tree is pulling up water. And as a beetle burrows into that trunk of the tree, typically that pressure of the sap can actually push the beetle out. But when there's a lack of water, it's not able to do that. So that's kind of what's going on the biology aspect of that. So we are looking at some funding availability for that. I'm going to turn it over to our water guys for trying to answer your iron question.
So I have a question for you back with regard to your backwash water. How thick is it? Is it mostly just discolored, or is it, if it settles? It's mostly discolored.
It looks like clay brown water.
Okay. Probably to try to retreat that and take it out, you'd be looking at some type of filtration system, which would be pretty expensive on a home level. I think it ties more to your second question about contractors. If you could find someone working in the area that needs water for dust abatement or control, they might be able to reuse it. And with your tree death, I was thinking that I've heard of that there are some treatments, chemical treatments that can be added to the trees, but one of the things that makes it difficult is it takes water to get the chemicals to transpire up in the tree. So possibly you could use your recycled water and a chemical treatment together to look at your trees. And there are a couple.
We've got hundreds of trees, about 2 acres, and
Okay.
isn't practical.
All right. You're right. It's not.
Barry, did you have anything to add to the tree discussion?
No, I don't, but I can get the contact information from one of our resource management folks in contact.
I just,
Take a look at it.
I'll follow up a little bit on what Rob said, because we did have a presentation at our last board meeting about this issue, because the county we're very concerned. By the time you see a top of the tree that is brown, the tree is functionally, it's dead. It's very costly to remove the trees, and if you are going to salvage them in any way, you need a timber harvest permit. It becomes very complicated. And so we are in contact with the governor's office. We're working through RCRC, because, again, all the rural counties are up against this. And how do we get an exemption when we need it now, so that we can, property owners can be actively managing their property and safely removing some of the dead fuels that are on them. So I wish I had a definitive answer for you. At this point, we don't. But I will say that the board is actively engaged in this, and we're very concerned about that issue. I think there was another question over here.
Hi, can you hear me? Sorry, I don't have a very strong voice. My name's Cheryl Devine. I live in Columbia on 3 acres, kind of smack dab right between Matlow Reservoir and the water treatment plant. And I'm surrounded on 3 sides by 80 acres of California State Park. And there's an enormous amount of downed, dried fuels, mostly bullpine and oak. And I'm wondering, how can I encourage the state park to deal with that so it's less of a fire hazard for me and the water treatment plant? Thank you.
I live over in that area too, and I'll I can meet with you after the meeting here and we can discuss that specifically. It's a state park issue, and if nothing else, I can get you into contact with those folks that manage that 80-acre parcel. I think I know the one you're talking about, and I'd be happy to meet with you afterwards. We've done a lot of work with the Highway 108 Fire Safe Council to treat areas as grant funds become available, and that's an ongoing effort. And we have done some work out in that general area, Experimental Mine, Baxter Quarry, a little bit farther out from you. So let me catch up with you. Highly encourage everyone in the room to get involved with the Highway 108 Fire Safe Council, and they need help. And there's lots of grant opportunities that come annually. There's a very limited number of folks that are a part of that organization right now, and so they're always looking for active community members such as yourself that take an interest in a particular area and then take the lead on some of that using the knowledge base that the council possesses in terms of going after grants, making the contacts, and then making a difference on those types of treatments. You know, the Defensible Space Program and the clearance issues that we work under, it all relates to habitable structures and where we can essentially enforce compliance with making sure that those kind of conditions don't exist around within 100 feet of homes and residences. The situation you're talking about is vacant land, and it's a problem everywhere. I wouldn't say it's just the 80-acre piece that's there. There's a lot of parcels out there that are vacant that this issue is taking place. So I would encourage you to get involved with that group, and you'd be surprised at what a few people can do working together to get some of that type of work done. But I will be happy to meet with you afterwards, and we can discuss in further detail what you're talking about there.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I'm Dave. I'm asking a question on behalf of a homeowner who's a little down the road from Salisburyville. There was a report on CBS television out of Sacramento maybe a little over a month ago regarding the program where there was subsidized assistance to homeowners who had an issue. They were on a well. And it was reported that a tank was installed. I don't know all the details of that, but that is one of the remedies that's being used or has been used over the past year in other rural counties like Humboldt in particular. My understanding is that the typical installation of a household assistance tank is in the neighborhood of 2,500 gallons. The tanks are available commercially in the range of $1,100 to $1,200 retail, plus delivery and installation. The tanks, when filled, weigh 20,000 or more pounds. So my question to you is this. The ideal situation for a tank would be a level concrete pad in the neighborhood of 9 feet square for support, if not maybe a sand pad or something, but that has its own vulnerabilities with flooding perhaps, depending on where you put it. My question to the county is this. Is a permit required for installing a concrete pad if you have to do it quickly so that you can situate a tank safely where you choose? And number two, will that trigger a reassessment of the land value on a property, particularly one that's under Prop 13 and is now limited to 2% appreciation annually? If it does trigger a reassessment, could the county institute a waiver so that emergency relief will not cause someone's property tax bill to possibly double, triple, quadruple, or more? Thank you.
Rob Kostlivy, Environmental Health. I can answer part of your question. The other components, I'm going to leave that to someone else. But essentially with our tank program, what you're referring to, we are installing tanks in the county. We have 23, actually probably a little more than 23 now, installed. And you are correct, they are 2,500 gallon tanks. They are typically at no cost to the homeowner. Our contractor is the one that's doing the work, the contractor through ATCAA. They are leveling the pad. Anything below 5,000 gallons does not require a permit in regards to get that pad to the appropriate grade for that.
You could put a pad anywhere on a property, hypothetically 9 feet square approximately, concrete, and there's no permit filing required, no reassessment or plot map or anything showing that improvement is required.
Well, essentially, the improvements that we're putting in, as far as I understand, there has not been a single concrete pad installed. It has been pea gravel that's been leveled out. So, in regards to requiring a permit for the pad, it's just pea gravel, so that there is no permit required.
What if it's in a flood area or a area where water collects? Would pea gravel be practical for a heavy tank, or does it cost benefit?
So Rob, maybe you can get this gentleman's information, and we can work with CRA to get the answers to those questions. I think there was a hand over here.
I just want to, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name over there. Hey, Dave. When you're buying a tank, you got to make sure if it's meant for concrete or meant for sand or a pea gravel, because there's a difference between it. I've seen people put the wrong tank on the wrong pad, and over the years they will wear the bottom out. So you make sure if you're going to do a concrete pad, then you go with a concrete tank. If you're going to go with a pea gravel, or I do not recommend sand, but a round pea gravel, then you make sure you have a concave bottom on that. Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add, some of these questions are why we have a licensed contractor installing the tanks.
John Featherstone, Sonora Community Estates. We're a senior housing community. We've got about 40 units, and we cover about 35 acres of our combined campus of the senior housing, the 10 grade day school, the church, and the daycare center. That's all part of our campus. And we've gone through and done a lot of this brush cutting that we've needed to do in our perimeter areas. And we've got a lot of grass that's come back up because we've removed all the stuff that blocks the sun to the ground. And so we're working hard to cut that, but we're just cutting it and laying it on the ground. Are we going to be okay as long as we do that early enough in the season to get it down on the ground while there's a chance of moisture soaking it up?
Can you leave grass laying around on the ground adjacent to the structures is the question?
No, just on the perimeters of the property.
The answer to your question is yes.
Yeah,
You-
we'd keep it clear close to the
Yes.
buildings. Okay.
The law requires that all flammable vegetation be removed within 30 feet of a structure. Outside that 30-foot zone and to the 100 feet or to the property line, whichever is closer. That's what we refer to as a reduced fuel zone area, and that grass is cut down to a height of, we would like that around 4 inches, and that can lay there on the site where it's at. So to answer your question, yes, the biggest thing is to get rid of this kind of stuff and the manzanita, and then cut the grass so that when the fire comes through, the flame lengths are reduced, they get down on the ground, and firefighters can put them out when they're there. If they're not there, and you have the 30 feet of everything cleared away from all the flammable vegetation, the theory is that the fire will hit that zone and literally go out. That's the goal. It doesn't speak to embers, things like that, which is why you need to make sure that your roof is clear of leaves and your gutters don't have pine needles in them. You don't have dead overhanging trees and limbs over your house within 10 feet of a chimney. All those things together serve to protect the individual homes. much greater.
My second question regards water use. If we're conserving water, but if we go to a tiered water usage situation, Tom is aware of our situation where the original developer put a lot of structures on the same meters. And so what that appears to on a tiered billing structure is that you're way over on your tiers of billing, so that you're in the top tiers on a particular meter, even though it may represent a dozen houses, for instance. And I do have a situation where I've got a dozen houses on a single meter. And the problem for me is if I go in and I want to do a hookup to the system, it's treated as a new hookup, and that's a $5,000 connection fee to hook into TUD. It's already into TUD, so it's not a new connection drawing from the TUD water supply, but it's viewed as a new hookup for fees, for the purpose of fee structures. So is there going to be any kind of a relief for us on a case-by-case basis for places where we have multiple units plugged into a single water meter?
The water conservation is going to be based upon the usage for that meter in 2013.
Okay.
So if you've got a dozen on there then, and you have a dozen on there now, and that dozen reduces their 30%, you're fine. You don't need to do another hookup.
Any other questions? Well, with that, will you please join me in a round of applause for these folks? I believe this is their 5th presentation in a month, and we really appreciate it. I want to also applaud all of you for wanting to come out and be proactive in what we need to be doing. I have a lot of confidence in this county. We did it last year. We'll do it again this year. Thank you all for coming out and sharing any of this information with your friends and neighbors.